everyone. Thanks for coming to the Dash community call. Today's our 82nd meeting, and what I have on the screen in front, I hope you can see it, is I have the combined meeting minutes from the last week, and I hope you guys are receiving these. But what I wanted to point out, in case you didn't have a chance to read them, is that Riff from the Microsoft SONiC team posted PR document and some slides talking about HA work and proposal here. And this happens in the Smart Switch Linux Foundation call presented by Gohan. And those are on Thursdays. One is in the morning and one is in the evenings. They alternate every other week. So I pulled up the slides. I thought we could take a quick look at them, but that happened. And then I followed up on PR415, and then if everyone's receiving the notes, it was just what we talked about last week here. So, and then the recordings are here where you can find them. So that's what we did there. And before we get started today, did anyone on the call have a PR or something they wanted to cover before? What I had planned to do was show you guys basically a quick overview of where Riff had posted his slides if you hadn't seen them. So did anyone have something first? Or I know Saad had asked for a little bit of time, but he was waiting for someone familiar with the pipeline or Marian, but we could always check. So did anyone else have something first? Saad, did you want to try and ask your question prior to Marian getting on the call?
No, I actually had some questions for Marian.
Okay.
The script, he has written the script. So.
What's that?
Yeah, it's his work that I have questions about. So.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anyone else?
Christina, just review sort of last week we'd agreed to merge 422, but it didn't get merged. I just realized
422. Okay.
that this morning, so I did merge it because it's going to be holding up. Camille has a new PR in line, and it probably has to be resynced again. He just submitted 429 an optimization on the code generator. So I reviewed it, it's fine, but I wanted to get 422 merged first.
Okay.
So Camille will have to probably sync to main. It's just kind of a more, optimization in the code generator. He's working on a long-term plan to kind of overhaul and clean up some things.
Let's take a quick look at that here. So this one got merged. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. And then you mentioned 429 here. So yeah, it looks like Camille's working in the background. Okay.
He's turning up a bunch of stones. He's lifting up a bunch of stones and finding things underneath and dealing with them. It's great to have fresh blood.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else have something for this week? Saad, I know you had your Python. I brought your Python conversion to Gohan's attention last week verbally while I was in front of him, so I had him take a look as well.
Hi, there is a PR to remove ACL text from behavioral model test pass. It needs a review.
Is it 425 here?
Yes.
Okay. And Chris is a reviewer, and I said looks good to me. Oh, Prince. So Prince is back, and he's been converted to on call for a couple of weeks. Kumaresh, would you be able to take a look at this one?
Yeah. Yes,
or put it in front of Prince or something?
Yeah, I think I'll take a look.
Okay, all right. I will put you as and you are KP. Oh, KP.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Marian. Marian, I think there was one question for you from Saad, if you had a minute. Go ahead, Saad.
So Marian, in the P4 code, there is an annotation that says is resource type. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so SAI has an API to query how many entries you can still create in a system. So the API is per object, and also you can have variations based on attributes. So some attributes may define a more specific carving of resources, or maybe they may say that the size of an entry is different. So some of those attributes will be marked as a resource type, which doesn't have an effect on the behavior. It will be simply passed from P4 code as is to SAI API, and you will see that in SAI API Doxygen comment on top of the attribute, which will only be used for availability query API. But on the behavior, it doesn't have any.
Okay, so the effect on the generated SAI API is only in the Doxygen comments and
yes.
not in. Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah. Okay, and the API that you said that queries the availability, is that API in those generated APIs, or is it in the main SAI?
No, it's generic. It allows you to query any object type.
Okay, so gives an object ID and
object type, not the ID type from enum.
Okay, is it documented anywhere? I mean,
I think so. Let me find the readme.
No, so you are referring to the README you created in the
no. I'm talking about the CRM in SAI.
Yeah.
I think we should have a document for that. Yeah, generic resource monitoring. Yeah. Okay, I will send the link in this meetings chat.
Thanks.
Sure. So so is this is resource type a property of the table, or is it a property of the? So, for example, you said that. I mean, shouldn't be. Based on what I understand, using this is resource type field, you SAI knows how many entries, for example, are how much space is left in the table.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So shouldn't it be a property of the table, or why is it associated with individual attributes?
Yeah. So let me give you an example. You have some entry that got a key, like an IP address, right? So yes. you may support IPv4 address and IPv6 address, and it's often a case when IPv6 entry will consume more memory.
Yes.
So the attribute in the entry, which is that address, will be marked as a resource type. Is resource type true, meaning that it will be usually like address family. And what you do when you query is you pass an object type, which is the type of the table, plus you pass this attribute of the table, a specific value, either v6 or v4. So it's not an attribute of the table, sorry, not the property of the table. It's just It's just like a flag that marks significant attributes that you need to pass along with the table ID or the object type.
Okay. Sure. Okay, I think I understand that. Also, this was one of the annotations. There is another annotation that says objects equals to. So, for example, in the SAI rules table, the group ID is associated.
Sorry, I didn't
with
hear
the
you well. Object.
Hello.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you
So
repeat what annotation?
yeah, it says objects equals. Then afterward, there is an all capitals name, probably a macro or an item.
Yeah, right.
So, specifically, for example, in the equal rule table, it is associated with the group ID.
Right. Yes.
Okay, what's that about?
So again, if you look at the generated SAI API, there will be a tag called objects. And there is a list of object types that this attribute is allowed to be set to, like that you can pass with this attribute. So it is generated for it is relevant to attributes of SAI object types that that are of a that the attribute is of type object, SAI object ID. But if you say SAI object ID, it's not like specific enough for validation checks, right? Because if your attribute accepts an object ID, it could be object ID of one type versus another type. So SAI metadata requires you to specify which exactly object types are allowed to be passed with this attribute. So previously what we did, we were trying to guess what would be the allowed object types, but I have added a capability to P4 to actually say explicitly by the programmer what object types are allowed, and this will be reflected in the annotation for that attribute in API.
I see. So it's for a more fine-grained, let's say, checks in the SAI API.
Yeah, because sometimes you cannot guess, right? We were trying to guess by the name of that attribute.
Yeah, in the script. I think everything that ends with _ID that had.
Yeah.
Okay, so just one more question. So in the P4 in the P4 model, every table, all the keys of a table, they have an they have an annotation that says name. Then in the name, the string have two parts, before and after a colon. On the left side, it is exactly as it is in the code. For example, meta.source IP address. And on the right side of the colon, there is sometimes the same name of the variable, and sometimes it is a different.
Yeah, I'm not sure
what does the right side field represent?
The right side, I believe, is the name that will appear inside API. Generate
I mean,
the
I can give you a specific example. So for example, in equal rule table, there is a field that says meta.dst IP address, and in the name annotation on the right side of the colon, it says dip.
Yeah,
right?
That's the name in the name of the attribute. So when you generate SAI API, you will get SAI-equal rule attribute dip. That will be the full name.
Okay, so you are referring to attribute ID enum.
Yeah.
Okay, and why was that a need to? Because sometimes it is the same as the variable name, and sometimes it is slightly different. Why was that needed?
I don't recall Probably sometimes, probably we'll need to look at the examples where those differ. I don't recall exactly. That was more for a just cosmetics to have a more a better defined and better understood name in the API.
I mean, it isn't allowing to name and change the name any way we want without changing any other code, basically.
Yeah, that's right.
I see. Okay, and one more question. So in the P4 code, there are a bunch of ECL rule tables, like for inbound, outbound, and for different stages. But when the API is generated, the API does not have any notion of which stage or which direction. But the script is.
There is a
about?
MOOCs. Yeah, we generate additional attributes. There is a logic that kind of merges tables that look the same. And you can specify that also not in the very straightforward way, but you can specify multiple tables that they belong to kind of like the same object type. And the SAI API generated will have their keys and actions, which are the same, but also there will be like a modifier attribute that will allow you to specify which exactly table you want to program. So in ACL, there is an attribute like a stage or something like that.
So when you are programming an entry from the SAI, you specify explicitly which stage or inbound or outbound.
Yeah. There are inbound stages, there are outbound stages. You can pick which table exactly you want to put a rule in. Because otherwise you would have kind of a not that easy to use API where you would need to based on the stage, you would need to use a different API, right? A different function call and all that, and all this logic would need to go into the application. But we made an API look like well, actually, like any other ACL that you can come up with. There is a table and the stage.
Okay, I think this one, I think I might have incorrect understanding about this one. So my understanding was also looking at the code that the control plane creates an ECL group with rules and all that. And afterwards, in a separate move, it attaches that group to ENI, whether it is inbound or which stage, right?
Yeah,
While creating
that's
the
right.
group. So,
yeah,
for example, while you are creating a group, right? At that moment, you don't care whether it is inbound or outbound or which stage. Now, once you have created a group, now you have, let's say, group ID. Now, in a separate API, for example, you attach that group to inbound or outbound, or let's say stage 4 ECL of the ENI.
No, that's right. But look at it from the P4 or from the pipeline perspective, right? You have distinct tables. You have really like in your pipeline, you have separate tables that the package should go through. And if you just do nothing and generate code for it as is, you would get an API for each table.
Okay, so then why would we have those pointers in the ENI context? For example, in the ENI attributes, we also have separate pointers for every stage and also for inbound and out, for all the combinations of stage and inbound, stage and direction.
For the proper bind, okay. Let me maybe open the
I can stop
P4.
presenting if you want to.
Yeah, one
So
second.
Marian, are you so are you referring? So are you saying that when the API is called equal API, and in the equal API you specify stage or direction, and then internally it calls two APIs, one on the rule table and one on the ENI attributes?
I don't think I understand what you're saying. So let me maybe open a P4 code first. How does the ACL look? So this is our macro for a table. And we have, first of all, we have this thing, right? The ACL group ID. So this is kind of you say in which group this rule belongs. So you may have multiple groups, but for let's say 50, 100 groups, 1,000 groups. This is your 1,000 distinct ACL tables. Each of those groups or tables will have a bunch of rows or rules that have these keys. And how it is modeled in here is that in P4, like the behavioral model is a fixed pipeline, right? You have a predefined number of lookups and predefined number of tables. So what we do in here is that so this ACL stage, we have a predefined number of stages. Stage applied, so like that. Actually, we probably need to extend it to 5 because size actually, or the number of stages required is 5, so we need to add 4 and 5. But really, in the behavioral model, you have only a fixed set of tables. Now, what you need to kind of model with that is your virtual tables, which is this one attribute allows you to do. So what happens is that like you have 10 ENIs, right? They belong to different customers or to different VMs, to different VNets. They may have completely different set of those in and out ACL groups attached to them. So each ENI may have a unique set of tables. But in the BMV2, you have only 6 tables and no more. So what you need to do is when you hit an ENI for a classification, so let's go to the ENI dash, that's probably dash pipeline, and there is an ENI table. Where is ENI? Here. So set ENI attributes is called when you do an ENI lookup. So when you determined which ENI your packet belongs to, then you'll set your inbound, outbound, V6, V4 ACL groups, which would be those identifiers of your virtual tables that will be looked up when you do the lookup on the physical table. So you have probably I will need to draw a diagram if it's too complicated. But what happens is that you populate the physical P4 table according to the with all the rules according to the stage, but there are rules that belong to multiple groups. So you will have a miss on all the groups that you don't belong to, and you may only have a hit on those rules that belong to your group that is attached to the ENI. So when you create a rule, you say that rule belongs to a group. When you create a group, you attach it to, or you say to at which stage for a particular ENI this group may be applied. And as a result, you get like, so first of all, what we were trying to do is, since you have like ACL stages here and ACL stages here, so it will be 6 P4 tables, but really even more because we may add more stages. So we didn't want to have that duplicated in the APIs, because you would get SAI APIs that look the same, just different name of the enum and different name of the function. So we collapsed those into one API, and then you have all these specifiers like the group, and then you can attach the group to ENI and so on.
Okay, and by attaching the group to the ENI, you mean setting the field in the ENI? One of those.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. So the intention from the user point of view is to say which ACLs to look up for this ENI. And what will really happen is that we will, in the behavioral model, we will just set in the metadata those IDs. And each time we do a lookup, we will know for which particular group ID we need to do the lookup for. So all the other rules won't be relevant.
Okay. So in this group ID, ECL group ID, is it unique across all the customers? Is it globally unique?
So this is not necessarily, right? Because it may be reused. So
at the same time?
So like 2 ENIs may point to the same group. It is allowed.
Okay. So so in the, I mean, if you go to the API, I'm not sure if you have one of those files in the, I'm talking about dash APIs for ECLs. I did not find any, for example, stage or inbound or outbound.
Okay, maybe
it's just programming a group.
Yeah, let me check. It's probably by the done by the object ID. So let me refresh my memory. Where is experimental? I think. Oh, maybe. Experimental is at the root. Okay, so ACL. So when we generate those, so what do we have? Group attribute, rule action. Okay. So what are the rule attributes? So here it is. Here is your dash ACL group ID.
Yeah. No, I was referring to stage. In this file, where are we programming? So suppose we are creating a group. Okay, where are we telling it that, for example, it is for, so in the 6 tables of the pipeline, where are we telling, if you search for stage, you will not find the stage.
It's not here because you can attach group to any stage, right? So rule doesn't know on which stage it is executed, because you attach a group to a stage, and you can attach theoretically, I don't know if that really happens or not, but it's not forbidden. You can attach group to stage 1 in one ENI, or to stage 2 in a different ENI.
And by attaching, you mean, so for example, if you look at this file, only the ECL file, while you're creating a group, you are just creating a group, and there is no notion of stage or direction.
Yeah, because for a group it's dynamic. That's why I'm saying you attach it. You have a fixed set of places you can attach it to, which is defined in the ENI API. So there is a fixed number of places that the group can be attached to. But at the point of creation of the group, or the attaching itself is dynamic. So in the runtime, you can attach the same group to different places.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so for example, in this file, you create a group and without any concept of and then you will go to the ENI API and you will set that group ID in the ENI attributes table, right? So I'm sorry, Marian, that's what that's the understanding that I had, but then why are there separate tables in the pipeline? Shouldn't be only a single table in the pipeline? Let's say group ID.
Oh, yeah. So so then you need to look at it from the
I originally understood.
Pipeline perspective. You still need to do 6 lookups, right?
Yeah.
So physically, those tables look identical. What changes is metadata. Each time you do a lookup, you do so when, let's say
sorry, metadata, you mean annotations?
No, I mean the group ID changes, or this, or value of this key, metadata dash echo group ID.
Okay.
So what you really want to achieve, you want to achieve 6 or 10, or sorry, for one direction, you want to achieve like 5 stages or 5 lookups. So in BMV2, one table can be looked up once. Otherwise, you need to replicate it. So we did replicate it. So there is probably a different way of doing that. Like you can have one table and you can probably call apply multiple times. I didn't try that, but you need to have this number of lookups.
So is this enough to move forward with, Saad?
No, just one more minute, if that's possible. Marian, if you go back to the equal file, .h file, and at the end, all the way in the end in the APIs. So let's say someone creates a group, okay, and someone says that, okay, add these rules in the group, and he calls this API, okay, and now in the behavioral model, I'm talking about the libsai, for example, that you generated. Okay, in the behavioral model, there are 6 of those tables. Okay, how will it know? How will your libsai adapter know which table to program the entry in, because you don't have the information here?
So when you create a group, you only so a group itself doesn't create a new entry. So this is just your
I'm referring to
a rule.
I'm referring to equal rules.
Okay, so a rule, when you create a rule, it will be created in all 6 tables, or in all, or all 10 tables.
It will be copied across all the 6 tables?
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason for that is because you cannot apply more than once in P4.
Oh, you kind of can with P4 code, but then it will be replicated. It will be replicated by the compiler, and then there are problems with that because the names generated are like, I don't really control how it will name the tables, so I just created them explicitly myself. So there are 2 ways. Either you create 6 tables, or you apply one table 6 times and compiler will create 6 tables for you. Okay, so it was easier for me to.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So you mean so this API creates a copy on every
every
table?
Yeah. Okay. And each time you do a lookup,
because of the limitation.
Yeah, and each time you do the lookup, like all these keys are fixed, right? Your 5 tuple is fixed. It doesn't change.
Yeah.
What changes is only this value for each lookup.
Yeah.
Thanks for the great explanation, Marian. That's really helpful.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, okay.
That may have been more than we intended, Marian. Sorry about that. Did anyone else have questions on that specifically before we move on? No? So I don't know if you saw this, Marian, before you joined. Griff had posted here his high availability work in the Smart Switch Linux Foundation area. And so I was showing it right here. And I did include it in the meeting notes from last time in case anyone wanted to go ahead and take a look, the PR, the document, the slides. But he's really open to feedback. And the audience here is different than the audience in the other meetings that I've seen. So I thought I would bring it up here and show it to you guys quickly. So have you guys been able to see these links, or you have these in the notes? So did I get a yes that you're receiving them, or a no? I can resend them. I could put it in the chat here. I'll put it in the chat. Are you guys interested in going through a couple of the slides today?
But we have them scheduled to be to continue review those on the Smart Switch meeting.
Yeah, the audience is different is the thing. Not everybody here goes there and vice versa. So I thought I would just introduce it here and let people know they're here. And then there is if they want to go through the deep review, I guess you could look at the PR, the docs, the slides, and then go to that call, I guess, if you want to go into the in-depth review. I guess that's all I was trying to say. If anyone's interested. And yeah, we can look at issue 415, sure. So, all right, guys, this is here. It's in the chat window. And then issue 415.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
just
go for it,
advocating
Chris.
for Camille because he can't always attend. There's an issue there where we need some Marian's feedback. There's a code being generated in the code generator that generates some problems, and you think Marian might be the best person to take a look at that. So I just wanted to ping Marian here and then maybe
Okay,
look
so
at
the param variable is shadowed, and then it doesn't know what this U16 set, but all these other things are. Probably some new function needs to be added to utils CPP. So go ahead.
Well, issue 1 there, Camille solved it, but issue 2, something where I think Marian would be the best person to respond if you can remember back that far, some type conversions.
Okay.
So let's just set set the parameter according to its type. So is there an error right now, or what? Like, how does the issue manifest itself?
Just lots of compiler warnings that are, I guess, raise questions. That's all. That's not an error.
Yes.
As much as warnings. Maybe it needs more explicit typecasting or something.
Okay.
Yeah. So currently,
Camille's
there's only
here.
yeah.
Hi, Camille. Hi.
Okay, go for it, Camille. Take over for me.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes. So what I actually want to do is to enable like warnings to errors during compilation to to avoid stuff like this. So basically, what's happening right now? This is just compiler warning, but under the hood, the OID ID is truncated to just lower 16 bits. From 64 bits, yeah. So I'm not sure, whether this has some like impact internally, whether in the BLD2 switch or whether in the side drift. So I actually need someone with like deeper knowledge, to take a look on that and figure out what could be the actual issue here. Because right now, actually, each object ID is unique because the index is set on the lowest part. So I think this is not issue, but I think that like the entire OID should be used as a ID.
Yeah, so if I remember correctly, the intention was to have ID built as a struct, so that the roughly upper bits would be the object type, lower bits would be the ID within that type. So by truncating, you're just getting the BMV2 ID value, which is less than 64 bits. It's 16 bits or something like that. You already know what the type is, so you don't need the whole object ID. You only need to pass the the ID relevant to BMV2. But I will check, maybe there is a way to do it without these warnings, just explicitly split the object ID.
So is this limitation of that key in the BMV2 to 16 bits?
No. It's just the size we picked. There is an alternative, as you're saying. We can manually convert all of the IDs in BMV2 into 64 bits. Doesn't really affect anything, but it will have to. We will have to make sure that the SAI code generated will have them unique, and also that we can derive an object type from them.
Yes, so I actually fixed one of the parts that like in the libsai. So currently the OID in the libsai is including the type. So I actually added that. So the OID contains the index and the object type on each OID. But my concern here was that if this value is truncated to the lower 16 bits, there will be like multiple objects with the same ID. Yeah? Because for example, like the port ID, or maybe like default trap group or something like that. So they are started from number 1 in the current implementation. So if you truncate that to 16 bits, so there will be like multiple objects with the same ID. I'm not sure like exactly how this is handled in the BMV2. If you say that when the call is made, they already know what the object type is, so maybe that's not an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, so the width in BMV2 is passed to SciLib, and SciLib only takes those bits because that's how much was reserved for that key or that action parameter. So that's expected. Maybe we'll need to make it not generate a warning, because it is intended to truncate.
Okay.
Thanks, Marian.
Thanks.
Thanks, Camille, for coming. What time is it where you are?
I'm in UTC +1, so it's almost 7 p.m.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, well, I could save us 10 minutes or so. Does anyone have anything else for this week?
Hey, Christina. Hey,
Yeah.
I created an issue number 428.
Okay. 28. Yep. Okay.
So I tagged Prince on this, and I see he's not in the meeting today. But I can, ask the group in case anyone else knows. So for service tunnel processing, one of the things the data plane does is convert the inner v4 header to an IPv6 header. And in the description in the HLD of the inbound service tunnel processing, it's not clear to me what the packet looks like when it arrives and how we're supposed to process it. So, like with any outbound packet, the outbound processing creates a entry in the flow table for matching on subsequent packets in that outbound flow. And it also creates an inbound flow entry for packets coming from the other direction. So here, I believe the packets coming from the other direction are IPv6, and the packets that are going outbound originally are IPv4. So I'm trying to understand if this description is saying or implying that, yeah, we create a v4 entry for outbound and a v6 entry for inbound. So I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that.
I believe yes, but I would like to confirm with Prince.
Okay. The second part of it is the packet format. I believe from the description, the packets arrive double tunneled. So there's like I have in the NCAP stack there, 2 NV GRE headers followed by the inner IPv6 header. It's not clear to me if we pop off one header or the 2 headers in the processing.
Right. My guess is it's the first one, but let us check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if it's only one,
Mhm.
that's fine. Except that if the flow lookup is done on the inner IPv6, then it's just different processing. Usually you pop off the outer header, you're left with the remaining header, and you do a flow lookup on it. This would be you'd pop off an outer header, you'd know somehow to skip the middle header, and then use the inner header for the flow lookup. And like, how do you know to skip the middle? Like,
Yeah, I hear you.
So I think in the HLD, in this section, there's lots of good examples, like with specific like packets and configs and IP addresses, and a good description of a step-by-step processing for the outbound and what happens and how you arrive at the final outbound packet. But the inbound description is much more brief, and it would be useful, I think, if there were inbound descriptions as rich as the outbound.
Okay. I was going to head up there today. I'll try and talk to him.
Okay.
All right. No, thanks for bringing that up. Okay, well, I guess I'll put that. Anyone have anything else? I can stop the recording and give us time to get ready for our next call, if that's what you guys would like. So I'll do that. I can't seem to wait for the 7 seconds to